Hello everyone. Here I am signing into my NotebookLM account using my Gmail account. A brief definition for those of you who don't know what NotebookLM is. NotebookLM is an AI tool developed by Google that allows you to upload your own documents to create a personalized AI assistant that is based exclusively on these documents. And that's kind of the appeal of NotebookLM, the possibility to build an assistant grounded only on the documents that we provide to NotebookLM. All right. Now, my goal in this video is to create a notebook using NotebookLM that works as an assistant for running a chi-squared test of independence. The chi-squared test of independence, it's a, let's say, very well-known and classic test in statistics that allows you to find out if two categorical variables are related or not, and if they are, to what degree. Okay. Now, I want this assistant to be based only on the materials that I use in the statistic course that I teach every semester. And that's why I chose NotebookLM to build it, because as I said earlier, NotebookLM creates personalized assistants based exclusively on the source materials that we provide to NotebookLM. Okay. Now, guys, after watching this video, you can follow the same steps I will follow to create my assistant, to create similar assistants, but maybe for other statistical tests, like, for example, ANOVA or the t-test or the Wilkinson rank sum test, okay? So the idea is the approach I'm going to share with you will serve as a kind of template that you can reuse and adapt for creating other assistants, okay? All right, guys. So let's start using NotebookLM. Let's create our notebook. To create the notebook, I'm going to use this option, create notebook. And right away, I get this window that allows me to start uploading my documents. I don't want to use this window right now, so I'm going to close it. And the first thing I'm going to do, because I usually forget, is to rename the notebook. Okay, so let me give this notebook a good name. So I'm creating an AI assistant for chi-square test. So I guess I'm going to call it assistant for chi-square test independence, something like that. I think that's a good name, okay? Because that's what kind of what the assistant does, okay? All right, now that we have a good name, notice that this is the main interface of NotebookLM, and it has three sections. The sources section where you upload all your documents or all the sources that you want to be to the you want the assistant to be based on, okay? This is the chat section where we kind of communicate with NotebookLM. We kind of explain NotebookLM what we want the assistant to do, okay? And we give feedback so to the different outputs that NotebookLM give us. So we give feedback back saying like, oh no, like fix this, change that, add this, okay? All right, so this is the chat. And then the third section is just, it allows us to create certain outputs following certain formats. So in certain cases, you want to use NotebookLM to create an audio file or a set of slides or a video, okay, or a flashcards, all right? And then you can use these options, okay? But I'm not going to use any of these options because the output I'm going to create will be right here in the chat. So the output from my assistant will be part of the chat itself. And the idea is to copy what the assistant gave us and paste it in our studio. Okay. So anyway, so I'm not going to use any of these formats. So I'm going to collapse this section. Okay. I'm going to work with only these two sections. Um, let's start by adding the sources. Okay. My assistant is for creating a chi-square test of independence. So my sources will be first an R notebook that includes two worked out examples of chi-square test of independence. I'm going to also refer to a YouTube video, so a link to a YouTube video where I work out a third chi-square test example. Okay, and the third source will be a PowerPoint presentation with a few slides about the chi-square test of independence. Okay, so three sources. Let's go ahead and add them. So first, I'm going to upload files, and from here, I'm going to upload the presentation with the chi-square test. And this is the notebook, the chi-squared test of independence notebook. Notice that the extension of the notebook is MD, marked down. Originally, our notebooks have extension .rmd, but NotebookLM does not accept RMD, so you need to change from .rmd to MD, which is very straightforward to do. All you have to do is right-click the file and change it from RMD to MD, okay? But that's something that you need to keep in mind, okay? Okay, so let's go ahead and upload these two sources, okay? So open, and the third source would be, remember, the link to a YouTube video with the third example of the chi-square test of independence. So let's go ahead and add source. And in this case, I'm going to use this option website, and I need to paste the link to a YouTube video. I have the link right here in this Google Doc, so I'm going to copy it from here. Control C, I'll paste it right there. Insert, and that's it. So we already added the sources. At this point, I'm going to collapse this section as well. Notice that the first thing NotebookLM does is it gives us kind of a summary of the sources that we uploaded. Okay, so it kind of acknowledges the sources that we uploaded and what they are about and all of that. So anything that uh, NotebookLM produces, you should read to check for accuracy or something that you want to change. Okay, but basically, I know that everything that NotebookLM wrote here is correct. So okay, so I'm not gonna read it and change anything. Okay, but in principle, anything that NotebookLM outputs in the chat, you should read it. And if you don't like something or you think something is wrong, you use the chat to give NotebookLM feedback. Okay, but let's assume that everything is okay here. Okay, and again, this is just a summary of the sources that we uploaded. What next? So the next step is to create something that I like to call the main prompt. The main prompt is just simply the prompt that defines what the assistant should do and how it should work. Okay. So in my mind, I like to think of the main prompt as having three elements, including three elements. First, the purpose of the assistant. Second, the steps the assistant should follow, okay, when a user provides data and a specific problem to address. And the third would be restrictions. So we should define restrictions about behaviors that the assistant should not pursue. So three elements. So that main prompt should have three elements: purpose, the steps to follow, to work out examples, and then restrictions. Okay. Um, I already created a prompt that include these three elements to kind of, save time in this video. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that prompt from this Google Doc. I have it here in this Google Doc, and I'm going to paste it in the chat. Okay. Again, the chat is the section where you interact with NotebookLM. Okay. By the way, I'm going to share a link to this Google Doc in the video description so you have access to the link to the YouTube video and the main prompt. Okay. Don't worry about that. So let me show you something. Notice the main prompt. Notice that I made it as general as possible by including some kind of fill in the blank places. Here you need to fill in the blank. Here you need to fill in the blank here as well. Okay. Because the idea is what I told you. You can adapt the approach that I'm showing you here, maybe for all the tests. Okay. So here I didn't want to mention that we were doing a chi-square test of independence because maybe you want to build a similar system for ANOVA. So you can do that. Okay. So I try to craft the prompt as general as possible. Okay. Um, okay, so let's just go ahead and copy this prompt right there and paste it. Paste it right here. We need to change a few things in the prompt, right? We need to make it specific. So let's read it. So you are an AI guided, and this is kind of the purpose, guys. Okay, the first paragraph is the purpose, right? You are an AI guided analytics assistant for a university level applied statistic course. That's kind of the context. Your role is to help users conduct a fill in the blank test. So let's specify that we'll have to conduct a chi-square test of independence. Okay. By proposing a complete step-by-step analytical plan based exclusively on the reference materials provided to you. And I like to, on each case, specify to be clear the materials that I provided to NotebookLM. So in parentheses, I will mention that the reference materials in this specific case are our notebook. You can say like the .md file. You don't have to do that, but if you want to. The presentation and the YouTube video. Okay, I like to be clear about the sources I uploaded. Okay. All right, guys. So that first paragraph define the purpose. Okay, the purpose of the assistant. Now these are the steps. Okay. Now these are um, the steps the assistant should follow to solve a problem. So when a user provides a data set and a problem description, you will acknowledge that the data source and problem description provided. And here I'm specifying that the data source may be an uploaded file, a built-in data frame, or a data entered manually. Okay, this is the option that we're going to use later in our example. We're going to enter the data manually. Um, the second step is propose a complete analytical plan that includes data exploration, statement of hypothesis, application of, and then I need to mention the chi-square test of independence again, of a chi-square test of independence. So I'm going to copy and paste. And lastly, and interpreting the results. Now, these phases, if you will, I follow all of these phases in the examples that I work out in the notebook. Remember, I have a notebook with examples and a YouTube video. In those examples, I follow these steps: data exploration, statement of hypothesis, application of the test, interpretation of results. I want my assistant to follow those steps as well, okay? Next, present the full plan before the user begins executing any step. After presenting the full plan, invite the user to review it critically, comparing it against what they learned in class. Yeah, because this is like to build this kind of assistance, supposedly you already have an idea about how the test works, okay? So that's important. So you already know how the test works, so chi-square, ANOVA, t-test, whatever test, and you just want to use AI to help you create an assistant that efficiently applies and efficiently and effectively apply the test for future examples. But you have to know how the test works. Okay, so you should be able to, given the plan, the execution plan provided by NotebookLM, review it critically, comparing to what you learn in class, to what you learn in whatever course you were taking. Okay, all right. Next, restriction and clarification. So this will be like the third element of the main prompt. Remember, purpose, steps, and restrictions. Okay, restrictions and clarifications. So do not perform the analysis yourself. Your role is to guide, not to execute. That's kind of vague. I don't like when I read that. I'm not even sure what I mean by that. Like, what is your role is to guide, but not to execute? What does that mean? So I had to explain that here. Okay, and by guiding, not executing, I mean that I need the code. So I want the assistant to generate the code to work out a specific example. Okay, so I want the assistant to generate the code, but I don't want the assistant to run the code and show me the output. That's what I mean by guiding, not executing. Okay, and that's what I specify here. Give me the code, but do not run the code and don't give me the output from the code. Okay. And finally, the final restriction is use only they are functions, coding style, and structure and analytical procedures found in reference materials. Do not introduce functions, packages, or approaches not present in those materials. So again, the idea is to base this assistant on the things that you learn in one specific course, in one specific from one specific course, okay, from one specific path that you were pursuing to learn about this test, okay? The idea is consistency. So you want consistency. So you want your assistant to use familiar methods and familiar code. Okay, assuming that the familiar methods and code are correct. Okay, uh, but yeah, that's the idea. So what is going to happen is now I'm gonna hit enter here, and then NotebookLM is gonna process my main prompt, and it's gonna give me feedback. Okay, it's gonna process the main prompt and it's gonna give me feedback. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Enter, and let's wait. Okay, so NotebookLM is done processing, and after we enter the prompt, NotebookLM is giving us feedback, kind of making sure that it understood what we wanted with the prompt. Okay, and again, what you should do is you should read this feedback. Okay, that's the feedback, kind of specifying, okay, so I understood that you want me to do this, and that. So you should read that. And if you don't agree with anything, what are you going to do? You're going to use the chat and say, hey, about the plan that you lay out, please change this. Okay. But I'm going to assume, just like with a very brief look at this, I'm assuming that everything is okay. Okay. But again, if something is not right, just say it here in the chat, okay? Use the chat to tell that to NotebookLM, okay? But I'm assuming that um, NotebookLM understood the prompt correctly, and all of this summary is fine, okay? At this point, notice that NotebookLM is inviting us to move on to the next step. And the next step is please share your data and problem description to get started and apply uh, this main prompt. Like apply the ideas behind this main prompt that you specify, okay? And let's do that. So let's find data of a chi-square test of independence, a new one, of course, not the ones provided in the source documents. Okay, so a new one, and then let's see what kind of solution we get, if it is correct or not. Okay, and for the problem, I'm going to work with this example. Okay, so in this table we have data about the Myers and Briggs personality characteristics for a random sample of 406 people in the listed profession. Basically, we have for each person, like each person was characterized according to uh, the person was extroverted or introverted, and the person's profession. Okay, and here you have the counts for each combination. And the question is profession associated with personality type? If necessary, comment on how the personality types map to the profession. So that's obviously a chi-square test of independence because we want to see if profession, that's one categorical variable, is associated with personality type, which is the other categorical variable. So we have two categorical variables: personality type, extroverted, introverted, and profession, clergy, medical, doctor, lawyer. And we want to see whether profession and personality type are related or not. Okay. So how do we enter this data? How do we enter this data? I think it's a good idea based on kind of the way we specify the prompt, the main prompt. Um, that that we want to enter data, problem description, and that the data source could be either file, built-in data frame, or data entered manually. I think it would be a good idea to, for this specific test, maybe for other tests as well, always enter the data like this. So first specify what the data source is, so that NotebookLM is clear. So it's a manually entered matrix. Then enter the data and then the problem description. Okay. For the data, I could have found a way of directly feeding a table like that to NotebookLM. I guess that's possible, but I did it differently, which is fine as well. Um, I just entered the count for each combination. I said clergy and extroverted, 62. Okay, clergy and extroverted, 62. Clergy and introverted, 45. With that data, NotebookLM will be able to recreate that table as well. Okay, again, might be a way of entering that data, I'm sorry, that table directly like that, explicitly like that, but this also works, okay? And finally, the problem description, okay? And the problem description is just like this text, guys. Problem description is just this text, okay? Nothing else than that. All right, so let me copy this and from here, paste it, and then let's see how the assistant works. So now NotebookLM should copy. Now NotebookLM should give us a worked out example. Okay, let's see. Let's wait. All right. So what is happening here? Let's wait one more second. What is happening here is that NotebookLM again is giving us feedback, and in this case, it's just giving us all the steps and code that we should follow to work out this example. What you need to do is check: do you agree with all the steps here? Do you agree with all the code? You should review the code and everything. And if you do, um, that's it. You know. Um, and then after that, just give feedback to NotebookLM. Notice that NotebookLM gives you all of this, and in the end, it tells you this. Please review this plan critically against what you have learned in class. Once you are satisfied with the plan, okay, once you are satisfied that this plan follows the required procedures, you may begin executing the code in your R environment. Okay, like meaning like if you agree with everything, go ahead and use the code, copy the code and paste it in your R Studio environment and run the example. Okay, but NotebookLM also tells you, let me know if you would like to clarify any of these steps. And obviously, not only that, you can also tell NotebookLM, hey, something that you did is not correct, okay? So let's briefly, to finish the video, read uh, the steps to see if we really agree with everything, okay? First, data entry. Data entry. Um, I like this because NotebookLM is giving us the code that we can use in R to enter this data. So we need to enter this data in R, right? Well, NotebookLM is giving us the code to do that, okay? NotebookLM is giving us the code to do that, okay? Using the matrix functions and all of the steps, all right? And it is correct. That's actually correct, okay? So then it's discussing how to conduct exploratory analysis, which is one of the steps I wanted NotebookLM to include. Okay, it's telling us how. So before conducting a formal test, we will compute the conditional probabilities for personality type given the professions. Okay, so what is the probability of each uh, personality type given the professions? Okay, and yeah, like within like among clergy, what percentage extroverts, what percentage of introverts? Among medical doctors, what percentage of extroverts, what percentage introverts? That's what that means, okay? And as NotebookLM says, this helps us visualize whether the distribution of extroversion and introversion changes depending on the job. That's perfect, okay? But not only that, it tells how to compute those conditional probabilities, okay? That's the code to compute these conditional probabilities. That's perfect. Statement of hypotheses, the hypotheses are correct. HO, they are independent, the two variables. Notice that it identified the two variables correctly. Remember when I was reading the example, I said that the variables are profession and personality type? It identified them correctly. So professional and personality are independent versus they are dependent. So that's good. A statistical assessment. A statistical assessment means just apply the chi-square test. Okay, chi-square test of independence. Okay, and that's the correct way of doing it. And now the uh, interpretation of the results. Let's see what happens here. We will use the chi-square function to evaluate the statistical significance. After you run the test, you will need to compare p-value to your alpha to decide where to reject HO. Okay, okay, good. Um, all right, that's good. I guess that's good. Now, interpretation of practical significance, that's the last step. If the t-test is significant, p-value less than alpha, we will interpret the results through these lenses. Ta, ta, ta. Okay. Now, right there, I already see a problem in a step number four. I mean, step number five. I like all the steps, so I agree with all the steps, but in step number five, it is telling me what to do if we reject HO. Okay, like it's telling us that we should do all of this validity check, Pearson residuals, Kramer's V, if we reject HO. But what happens if we do not reject HO? It's not telling us that. You know what I mean? Like, do we need to do all of this if we don't reject HO? And the answer is no, but it's not clear. So here, one thing that I will do is I will enter feedback. I'm not gonna do it to save time, but I will enter feedback saying, um, you know, change the following uh, ideas from the plan, something like that. And then I will start listing the things that I want to change. And I would say something like in a step five, comma, dot, 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 what I want to change. Okay. So in a step five, what do I do if p-value is greater than or equal to alpha? Okay. And yeah, that's one thing I would like to change. And this is also vague, very vague. For the Pearson residuals, it doesn't really tell us how to interpret them. Notice it says Pearson residuals. This will tell us which specific professions are linked to which personality types. Large positive residuals indicate strong positive association. Um, but I don't know, like what happens with negative residuals. Okay, so I think I would like a little bit more clarification. Um, I I don't like Kramer's V interpretations either. It tells us this provides a measure of the strength of association. That's correct. That's correct. But it says ranging from 0 to 1 complete association. Guess what? In the presentation, and also I think, yeah, in the presentation and also in the notebook, yes, in both places, I have a range uh, to evaluate Kramer's V, like from 0 to 0.25, a very weak association. From 0.25 to 0.5, moderate, stuff like that. And it's not giving us that. Okay. That's another thing that I can use the chat to 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 ask NotebookLM for more details. Okay. So in the Kramer's V interpretation, please, can you be more specific as to how to specifically evaluate the strength of association? How do I know when the association is weak, very weak, strong, very strong? And that should be enough. Okay. But that's the idea. And And then after that, once you are happy with everything, you go ahead and copy the code from here and paste it in your RStudio environment and run it. Okay. This is a great example because I was very happy with the assistant. Um, I'm sorry, I was very happy with the steps that the assistant provided me from 1 to 4. Like one, I like two, I like three, I like four. But then because I know what this test is about and I know the ideas about behind this test, I didn't like some of the things that the assistant was returning for step number 5, and that requires further clarification. Okay, so that's a perfect example in the sense that you cannot rely completely on AI. Okay, at least for this kind of thing. So you should always have some knowledge and skills, and you should guide AI. Okay, you should always guide AI. Okay, but uh, sure enough, as after you make these corrections, your assistant will work very well for any future examples. Okay, so the assistant, the first version of the assistant was not perfect, so it has some issues in step number 5. But after you uh, provide feedback and those changes are incorporated in the assistant, it will work perfectly for all the examples. Okay, but again, um, there's always the need of a human um, with knowledge and skills to guide AI in a better direction. Okay. Okay, so that's all I wanted to show you in this video, guys. So how to use NotebookLM to build an assistant to do, in this case, to run a chi-square test of independence for new data sets and new problems. Okay, and you can adapt this procedure for other statistical tests like ANOVA, like the t-test, like the variance test, whichever statistical test that you may want to run. Okay, perfect. Thank you for watching, guys. Bye.